it's Ketevan. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm sure you've all heard by now that Jan Fosse is the 2023 Nobel Prize in Literature laureate. Congratulations to him. I'm sure he's a great writer. I've already ordered a book by him to read. No ill will. Think he's great. No problem. But this also reinforces exactly why I've structured my Nobel reading project the way I have. So I had this idea to read as many from the list as I could, but the list is quite long. It's 119 authors, and I only want to read one book minimum by each author. That's still like 120 books, right? And of course, if I like an author, then I'll want to read more books by them. So I was like, you know what, let's not make this too overwhelming. And I also didn't want to go in order because, you know, starting with older books, it's not like a recipe for success. And I didn't want to just go backwards either. So I just decided to give it as much flexibility as I possibly wanted. But I just knew that I would personally want to prioritize authors of color and women. So, I mean, if you didn't know already, it's pretty common knowledge, but there are 119 winners and only 17 of them are women. And out of those 17 women, only one of them is a woman of color. And, like, you know, what does that say? Is the Nobel Committee saying that women aren't as good writers, or women of color aren't as good writers, or don't have these, you know, because the Nobel Prize is about their lifelong work. So maybe you could say it's fair because a lot of women writers haven't had, you know, the time or the space to have a large body of work. But I don't know, like, I'm not here to like do an in-depth analysis because honestly, I don't know enough about, you know, publishing and the critiques of publishing and how these things work. I just know that I'm not thrilled with it and that I can't just say, oh, these are the best writers in the world, because obviously they're not just the best writers in the world. There are other great writers that have different perspectives and different stories to tell that are just as important. So that being said, I still am going to read them, right? But I said to myself, I wanted to prioritize authors of color, non-Western writers, and women, of course. So I'm not going to go into any sort of fancy order or anything formal like that. I'm just going to go through the authors that I have read and basically tell you if I've read one of their books or not, give it basically a thumbs up or a thumbs down, maybe say a little bit more, and then go through my TBR, which is sitting right here. And I'm actually quite pleased with my TBR. Before this year, all my Nobel Prize winners had been shelved just with all my other books. So like, for example, this Egyptian author was in the like section where Egyptian authors would have been. And that was fine. But then I realized like I wasn't really like gravitating the way I thought I would. So I decided to gather all the Nobel Prize winners in one spot and put it in a bookshelf in my bedroom. And that was actually, I realized like how big the TBR was. It was two whole like sections, maybe like this big. And so having them gathered like that in front of me really like got me like, oh, I'll just pick this one up. And it made me pick them up naturally without like forcing myself, because this isn't about forcing myself to read anything. I'm just wanting to read these books, but I need, you know, incentive to pick them up because there's so many. And so this does look quite big, but it's actually about half of what was on the shelf earlier this year. So I'm actually really happy with how small this stack has gotten. So yeah, we'll just jump right into the books I have read, and then I'll go through these really quickly since I haven't read them. So just to give some quick stats, I've read 23 of the 119 laureates, and the way my spreadsheet's organized it is in year, but we're in reverse, so I'll just start and go back in time. So I have read actually a lot of Annie Ernaux because her books are so short and I'm reading it in French and, you know, all that stuff. And in general, I like her work. It's just, it's tough reading it in French. And I might make a separate video on this, but it's not tough because of the French. It's tough because I just do not enjoy her voice in French, which is funny. And it's really illustrating to me how much the translator's voice matters so much. So, but yeah, I've read about like 5, maybe even more books by her. So definitely check her out if you haven't. Louise Gluck, I'm not sure how to say her last name. She's an American poet. I read one book by her, the most famous one, I think. I forgot what it's called though, but it was really nice. Peter Handke, I'm not sure how to say his name again. Can you tell I prepped for this? He's Austrian, he writes in German. I read The Goalie's Anxiety at the Penalty Box. I really liked it. It's just, again, like, it's a great book, but it's just, this is the perfect example of like such a male, like it's such a male story. It's like literally about a guy who like meets this woman kind of on the street, kind of at her job, and just like asks her on a date, and then like takes her on a date and then like murders her. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, wow. I mean, it's a great book. It is a great book, but like such a male-centered gaze, right? And then, of course, Olga Tokarczuk. I've read 2 books by her now. I love both of them. Highly recommend her work. Mo Yan, I read one of his books, Frog. I really enjoyed that as well. Orhan Pamuk, I read Snow, which I also really enjoyed. J.M. Coetzee, I read one of his books, Disgrace. Really enjoyed it, but again, such a male-centered book. Imre Curtis, I actually picked up his book on a whim and read it on a whim, and I really enjoyed it. He's a Holocaust survivor, and he was, I believe, Hungarian? Yeah, Hungarian, and he didn't speak Yiddish, so when he went to the concentration camps, he didn't feel accepted by the Jewish people there, so it was a really interesting narrative. I really enjoyed it. Dark, obviously, but good. And then we have Jose Saramago. I have read Blindness by him. Really good. Highly, highly recommend it. Very good book. And then we have Seamus Heaney. And I think I need to read another thing by Seamus Heaney because I read his translation of Beowulf, which of course I count, but also I do want to read one of his original works as well. But I really enjoyed his version of Beowulf. Highly recommend. Then there's Toni Morrison. I read The Bluest Eye by her, and she is the only woman of color on this entire list, and she won in 1993. So that means there has been 20 years of no women of color being awarded this prize, which is mind-blowing to me, but it is what it is. And then William Golding. I read Lord of the Flies in high school. I think I should probably give it another reread at some point, or one of his other works, but I've read it. Samuel Beckett, Waiting for Godot. Really surprised how much I love that one. I really didn't think it would be for me, but oh, fantastic. And then we have Yasunari Kawabata, Snow Country. Very, very good. Again, very male perspective, but excellent book. John Steinbeck of Mice and Men. I know there's a lot more Steinbeck that I could probably enjoy, but I'm just not feeling myself drawn to him, even though I loved Mice and Men. So we'll see how that goes. And then, of course, Albert Camus, The Stranger. Loved that book. And then Ernest Hemingway. I've read The Old Man and the Sea. Again, there's like so much more, but I'm just not feeling myself drawn. If I find, for either John Steinbeck or Ernest Hemingway, if I find used copies for cheap in a used bookstore, I will definitely buy them. I'm just not going to go out of my way to like add them to my collection. And then we have William Faulkner. I don't remember which book I read in high school. It was probably Absalom. Probably. I did not like it. I do not like his style of writing. I don't like his subject matter. It just doesn't interest me at all, but I've read it, so it's ticked off the list. Pearl Buck, I read The Good Earth, also very disappointed. You know, she's an American woman that grew up in China, and the stories she generally writes are Chinese stories with Chinese characters, and I just didn't enjoy it. George Bernard Shaw, who I actually just found out doesn't like the George part of his name. He likes to be called Bernard Shaw, and I actually learned that because like on the Penguin Black Classics now, it just says Bernard Shaw. But anyway, so yeah, I've read Pygmalion, and I really enjoyed that one. I mean, who doesn't? It's a classic for a reason. And then we have Kazuo Ishiguro. I read Remains of the Day, Clara and the Sun, and I might read Never Let Me Go because that was the book I initially picked, and then book clubs picked Remains of the Day and Clara and the Sun, so I read those for book clubs, but originally the book I was most interested in is Never Let Me Go, so I might read that one, but I don't have it in my pile yet. And then Alice Munro, I've read a bunch of books by her. Runway, Hate Ship, Friendship, Love Ship, Marriage, and then I think at least another one. I really enjoy Alice Munro books. And that's it. So those are all the Nobel Prize winners that I have read so far. So now what I think I'll do is I'll go through my TBR really briefly, and then maybe list a couple of the other authors I know I'm wanting to get to soon. Like, I don't own a copy, but I know like I want to read their book very quickly, within the next like year or two. And so yeah, let's do that. So these are in no particular order. They're literally in like the order that like looks nicest on my bookshelf. So I just have 3 plays here. Bernard Shaw, Major Barbara. I found this in, I forget which country, but it was in my Baltic country video, and I'll link it below. I found it in a bookshop there used, and it sounds super cool. It sounds like right up my alley, and about like, you know, funding charity and the ethics of that and everything like that. So I'm really interested in getting to this one. And then this one is the first Wole Soyinka I got. It's he's actually most famous as a playwright, and so this is a little play by him, Death and the King's Horseman, a classic tale of tragic decisions in a traditional African culture, based on events that took place in Oyo, an ancient Yoruba city of Nigeria in 1946. So I'm really looking forward to that one. And then we have this one. It's so funny. This is exactly proof of why this project was so great for me to do. I saw this book. It's a collection of 3 plays by Luigi Pirandello. I saw this on the shelf and I was like, I should read that book. When I'm scanning my used bookstore shelf, I don't usually pick out books unless I recognize the author or like something really stands out to me, and like there's nothing stand out about this book. It's gray, you know, but I was just like, it feels like I should read that. Like I really feel like I should pick this up. And so I pick it up and I, you know, check on Goodreads and everything, and he's a Nobel Prize winner, and I recognized his name and said, I feel like something, I couldn't articulate it. I knew. And so I ended up buying this book because it was only like a couple euro, and I probably won't read these plays like very quickly, but I have it now and I don't have to pay full price for it later. Yay. And then actually I'm reading this right now. I have to add this back into the pile. I'm reading Love by Toni Morrison right now. I again just found this like used. I don't think there's a right order to read Toni Morrison, so I just, whatever books come my way. And then Beloved, unfortunately, is going to be permanently like on pause because unfortunately every time I feel like I pick this book up to read it, someone I love dies. So I'm just, I don't know. I've done it twice. I've started reading the book and then like within a week somebody close to me dies. So I'm not going to do it again for a long time until, I don't know. And then I almost right away picked up the sequel to Blindness by Jose Saramago. It's Seeing. I haven't picked it up yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. It's sort of like the sequel where this like, you know, society kind of tries to rebuild itself, and it's very political about like the structures of the story. So I'm really looking forward to that one. And then this is the only kutse that I managed to bring with me. I know I have more in storage in California, but this one's Waiting for the Barbarians, and it's supposed to be one of his good ones. It won quite a few prizes, and I've already forgotten what it's about. Allegory of Oppressor and Oppressed. Yeah, so looking forward to that one. And then actually, I'll pull out this Icelandic one next. Halldór Laxness, Paradise Reclaimed. I think his more famous book is Independent People, which I definitely want to read. But for some reason, I just asked for this for Christmas one year because it's about a guy who leaves Iceland to go to Utah to be Mormon. And I just was like, what? Of course, like definitely I need to read this book. And then I just haven't gotten around to picking it up yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. And then we have 2 by the same author, Naguib Mahfouz. This one is a very interesting little collection of short stories that were found either upon his death or in his papers, like way after his death. I don't remember the details, but there's little short stories about, you know, just Cairo and the different neighborhoods of Cairo, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's really short and sweet, and I think it'll be really interesting. And then he's more famous for this book. This is part 1 of the Cairo trilogy. It's called Palace Walk, and again, it's set in Cairo. Actually, the back does not have any description. That's how famous it thinks it is. But yeah, it's really long, and this is just part 1 of the trilogy, so that's definitely gonna be a bit of a dive in. And then this is another Wole Soyinka. I was just on a trip and I found this, I think, and maybe I got this for my name's day, I don't remember. But this is one of his few novels. He's mostly a playwright, but he also writes some novels, and it's called Chronicles from the Land of the Happiest People on Earth. I've started this once, and I just don't think I was in the right headspace, but I think I'm going to try again before the end of the year because I really do love the idea. It's basically like a critique of all the corruption in Nigerian government. And then last but not least, I'm not sure whenever I'm going to get to these guys, but I found both of these used, 100 Years of Solitude and Love in the Time of Cholera. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, obviously beloved, great author, you know, nothing wrong with them. I just like, it feels like such a project to get into these, and I don't know. We'll see. Hype me up. Tell me why they're so great. I don't know. I probably will start with Love in the Time of Cholera, but then the thing is, this book, like, look at it, it's so big and heavy, and I just know I won't be able to pick this up and read it. But yeah, so those are all the books on my TBR. So let me put some of these back. So yeah, those are all the books on my TBR, and I'll just go over briefly some of the authors that I know I want to read like relatively soon. So the first one, of course, is Abdul Razak Gurna. He's Tanzanian. He won in 2021. But every once in a while, I'll just go through and read the descriptions of like his most popular books, and I'm just like, none of these really resonate with me. The stories or like the descriptions, the way they are worded, I'm not sure. So please tell me your favorite Gurna, because like, wow, I need to just buy one and commit to it. The other one is Svetlana Alexievich. She's written a lot of like nonfiction about women in World War II in Russia. So I want to read that one. It's called, I think, Voices. Well, actually, I think there's a lot of them, but like Secondhand Time, I think is her most popular one. There's also Voices from Chernobyl. I don't know if that's women only, but really like excellent nonfiction writing, which I'm looking forward to. And then I definitely want to read The Appointment by Herta Müller. That sounds amazing. I just haven't found a copy yet. And Doris Lessing, maybe The Good Terrorist. That's what I'm thinking for Doris Lessing. And then I have Lizwala Zimborska, I think is how you say her name. She's a Polish poet mostly, and I picked out Sounds, Feelings, Thoughts. And then Kenzaburo Oe, not sure how to say his last name. Nip the Buds, Shoot the Kids. Looking forward to that one. Grazia Deledda, she's Italian, and the book After the Divorce definitely piqued my interest. And yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, there are other like authors of color and women authors that I haven't mentioned here, but those are the ones I like have like kind of like up next in my like to buy list, because I still have so many to read. I don't want to like go overboard with picking out stuff. But please tell me who your favorite Nobel laureate is. Tell me if you have made an effort to read Nobel laureates. Maybe you read them more like today, like every year you try to read the current one if you're interested. I don't know. How do people do this? Do you just ignore it completely? That's also totally valid, because like I said, this obviously is not a representative literature prize, but I just think it's such a bummer because it is the most prestigious literary prize, and also it's the one that comes with the most money. So it's just a shame for me to see a lot of European otherwise well-off authors. I mean, let's be real, if you're winning the Nobel Prize, you're pretty well off, but like, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's $1 million prize, and it's just such a bummer that it's not distributed more equitably. And I don't know how it works. Like, I actually really don't know how it works, because like, how does a bunch of Swedish people evaluate international literature? Like, do they, I mean, obviously it has to be translated. You can't expect people to like read books in the original. Or maybe they do, and that's why it's so limited. I don't know, but probably not. And so then basically, are you really just evaluating the translator? It's so tough to have an international literary prize, that's especially one that's chosen by a bunch of Swedish people. It's not like an international committee, I don't believe, or like if there are international members, the majority, I believe, are Swedish. So I don't know. I'm not sure how it works. This is not meant to inform you on how anything works. I'm telling you about my reading project. So here it is. That's what I've done so far. Yeah, so please just tell me all about your Nobel Prize reading, whatever you've been doing. And thank you so much for watching. Until next time. Bye.